Welcome back to States and Kingdoms. Today we're talking about Billy Joel and his album The Stranger from 1977. Growing up as we did, mostly on Long Island, Billy Joel is kind of like a national, well, not national.
National.
Long Island kind of hero. It's sort of like an unstated thing that everyone loves Billy Joel. I remember, it was just not even just how, ubiquitous, like, all his songs are, like, on the radio and stuff, like, on classic rock radio in New York, but just, I don't know, just, like, an aura, like, of Billy Joel.
He's really popular on Long Island.
Really popular.
I remember I had a teacher that was just, like, the biggest Billy Joel fan of all time. He talked about it.
Groupie? Oh.
No, he talked about it all the time. He went to see him. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
You couldn't get away from Billy Joel on Long Island, and that means either you love it or maybe you react against it. By this album, he's getting into the early rock and roll stuff. That's being incorporated into his sound. I would say like Turnstiles and this have a similar sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of They have but he really is slowly just putting all the rock and roll stuff, really getting the Dion back into his music. That's what we were talking about, how Long Island, is a real rock and roll place. Like early 60s, 50s, early 60s rock and roll. It was really popular. It stuck around there.
Yeah.
People like the Ramones, the Stray Cats.
Yeah, totally.
And Billy Joel. By this time and even more so into the 80s, he's just doing all of the early rock and roll stuff, and making it his own. And that's the thing, that there are songs, not as much on this perhaps, but there's, because something like The Longest Time or something like that is
obviously
and there on Glass Houses there are some songs that are vaguely Beatle-y.
Yes.
And but he still makes them his own, and they're all incorporated into his style.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the thing is with this album, this is one
no
of the...
hits.
I know, this is one of those albums that just...
flopped.
You know all the songs.
Yeah, even if you never listen to it, it's like, oh,
I think,
they're all on
you
this.
would know all of these songs except maybe two?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, except for, like, the last song.
Maybe the last two songs, because... But other than that, I remember hearing all of these on the radio.
Yeah.
They were all around.
I'm here. They're in my head. Ah.
Scenes from an Italian Restaurant was on the radio over and over. That actually, and I always enjoyed it. It never got old having that on. It's like once that started.
It's like Bohemian Rhapsody, it's kind of structured the same way. It's got the little preamble, to the story, and then I really love like the break with the saxophone.
Yeah.
I think that's very pretty.
It's a little bit more down to earth than Bohemian Rhapsody, but yeah.
But it's a very, very pretty little musical interlude.
No, it
and then it jumps into the upbeat part, with the more of the narrative. It's really fun.
What's funny about this is that this isn't like in the early 70s. I'm not as big a fan of like Piano Man, that album. Obviously, a couple of those songs.
I thought you were calling out Elton John.
Yeah. But, that's not really that was never really my thing. A lot of the piano players, it wasn't something that I really wanted to listen to.
Yeah.
Billy Joel, early on, was kind of there.
Well, especially, if you listen to the first album, his voice is super folky.
It's definitely, yes.
Like, it really kind of smoothed out and got, the Dion stuff coming back in, like you said.
Yeah, which is really interesting that he started in one spot and then started kind of bringing in things that must have been very early influences. Obviously,
if I were a guy, I'd want to sound like Dion. What's a better guy to model yourself off of? What a gorgeous voice.
He has just one of the best senses of rhythm.
Yeah.
And
so you definitely hear that. You hear that in Billy Joel for sure.
Yeah, and it starts coming in here, and it actually just increases.
And it's good.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's a good change. It's a good change.
All of these songs, so dynamic. You have upbeat songs. I mean, just from the very beginning. I really do. I love, even though it's bittersweet. Obviously, just the way you are is it's a beautiful song. For us, it's hard to explain because this is subjective in a lot of ways. There's just something familiar about Billy Joel.
Yeah, well, partly I think it is in the lyrics. I mean, there's so many autobiographical references that he uses. So these they're familiar in like a universal way, but
Sure.
especially so if you're from New York, because he really does point to not just geographical locations, but just like things that are part of the New York experience. I mean, but also there is a grander theme going on. I mean, anyone that has grown up can probably relate to a lot of his songs, and a lot of them are kind of narrative based. And that's just his style.
He perfected it to the point where he could tell a story in a shorter song, and got very good at that.
Yeah.
And I think this is, I'm not gonna say this is where it started, but I think this is, I would have to say this is where he really struck upon something that everyone really enjoyed. But like I said, it's just very familiar. It's like home. He does have a great voice. A great rock and roll voice. It's extremely expressive. Mm-hmm. Even with whatever influences, sometimes you hear some Mick Jagger, you hear Dion, whatever. But it's still completely recognizable as Billy Joel. You always know, it's him.
Yeah.
And and the band here is great. Like everything is fun to listen to. I am a fan of piano music, but that sort of 70s
I like
piano.
Joe Jackson piano music.
Well, I do too.
Really like.
Yes, I do too. And that's also a little bit unusual for me. I think, something about Joe Jackson I really enjoy, probably because he's really good. The way the piano is here, it's just, I think, when you compare him to some of the others, they tend to be bluesier. He really isn't at this point. It's really not there. And it's really well produced.
It's a good sound, like in the way that like Steely Dan.
Yes, it's just well produced. It's just everything is balanced, and everything sounds clear, and
you can hear everything.
We were talking about some of the albums that have so many hits.
Yeah.
I mean, we were going to talk about like all of them, even if they're not our favorite records, because it's a fascinating
thing. It would be a fun list to do. To come up with like those albums that just had like 4 or 5 hits off of each album. Like there's a few, at least like that we specifically remember in our lifetime.
Oh yeah,
that
there were
some
huge
albums. But yeah, he had a couple where just like every other song.
And not only that, I mean, I think
crazy hit.
I feel like every record there's a song everyone knows.
Oh yeah.
I mean, easily it's like every album has at least one song, usually more than one.
Yeah, because we didn't grow up listening to Billy Joel in the house. Like we didn't really have anyone putting on.
Everywhere outside was.
It was just on everywhere. Yep. It's kind of a joke. Like whenever we're driving, like whenever we go to visit Long Island, if we're driving around, you're gonna hear, like a couple times.
Yeah.
You're gonna hear some Billy Joel.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like that. It's really funny. Really funny. You just feel like you'll run into him somewhere.
Well, it's possible.
Like, you go to the diner. It's like, oh, there he is.
Album after album with, a hit song, a song that, that is genuinely good songs. I mean, there's no, even like River of Dreams, that's a great song.
That's a catchy song. That was it.
I'm just saying, I'm thinking, I'm going through song. All of the 80, and how many people are that consistent? I mean, really, it's impressive.
He's a superstar. I mean, who are we kidding?
Never seen him live.
No.
I mean, when we were of sort of age.
Because you started doing those shows with Elton John.
Yeah. I never, that's the thing. I just never.
It's not that it wouldn't be interesting.
I'm not as big a fan of.
It's really nothing. I'd be like, oh my God, I got that ticket.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at the time I thought that's sort of interesting. I don't really think of them together.
Right. They could have also included like Axl Rose. Add other sides to the piano. Let's see what happens. How many pianos can they like configure together?
I'm sure that was never thought of.
They could also add Daffy Duck and Donald Duck.
Well, now you're talking.
He also, I was just thinking, I was thinking about his videos and some of the videos that were, popular when we were growing up and we saw a lot. And, Billy Joel also gives off this like everyman vibe. He's not like the most like dashing. He's cute, but he's not like this like movie star guy who, but
you're thinking about Uptown Girl, aren't you?
But because that, I know,
you
but
see it.
Not that you see it in my eyes.
Yes, I can see it.
But not that that's like real life. I get it. That's a video and a song.
It's not.
But he does give off that, like very normal, everyman kind of thing. He just happens to be very, very talented and very, very successful. But he does feel...
Basically who he's singing for.
Yeah. He does seem like an approachable guy. Like if you did run into him at the diner, I think he'd be like...
Are you looking to meet him somewhere?
Maybe. But which diner?
It was, this video was either this or Glass Houses, and I actually really, really like Glass Houses.
Me too.
Well. I mean, that's also a great album. So maybe, we'll
talk about that
go into some of those songs, because some of those are really interesting. And, develop from this, getting even more into just rock and roll.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting mix, though, of his early style and what was going to come later. So it's interesting.
It feels transitional.
Yeah, and it's just, but it's flawless. It is.
Thanks so much for watching our brief discussion of Billy Joel's The Stranger. Let us know what you think of this album in the comments. Make sure to like this video. Please subscribe to States and Kingdoms, and we will see you next time.